In the parish of Ormiston, in East Lothian, there sits a small village by the name of Peaston. The village itself is not much to write home about, only a small collection of farmers and a local minister to tend their religious needs. But in the late 17th century, this local minister made a great mistake, one that would haunt him from beyond the grave: the ghost of Isabel Heriot. Isabel Heriot was a maid, in service to the local minister. She would act as cook, cleaner, and general housekeeper. Isabel was described as a person of little stature. She was small, slender, and of dark complexion. Her head was said to sit awry on her shoulders, and she was quite noticeable from a distance. As a person, she was cheery and warm, but with a droll sense of humour. In the village, she was known for a confidence beyond her rank, and on many occasions would challenge the minister on his religious views and biblical interpretations. Although by all accounts, she was a competent and driven worker, the consistent challenges led the minister to despise the woman. This came to a head early in the winter of 1680, when Isabel was dismissed from service. Now the unemployed housekeeper had nowhere to go, and the winter chill was rising. She had no family to go to, and her many friends in the village had quickly turned their back upon the poor woman, as they too feared the wrath and power of the minister. Isabel was outcast, left homeless in the cold. Many of the villagers thought it was her own fault. She had brought it upon herself by challenging the minister. She never knew when to keep quiet. On the first Sabbath after she was dismissed from service, Isabel would appear at the gate to the kirk. She was unclean and dishevelled. She stood there and watched all her old friends and acquaintances enter the church for that day's service. Most pretended not to see the woman at the gate, but once inside, whispers, gossip, and rumours spread like wildfire. The last to enter the kirk was the minister himself. He stopped for a moment and stared at Isabel. She had hoped he'd changed his mind and would show her some of the compassion that he preached so readily. But it was not to be. The minister shook his head and ordered that the doors be closed. Isabel, now shunned not only from the village but also from her faith, was in complete despair. She thought about running to the door and pleading with the people and the minister, hoping that they would allow her to return. But these thoughts of panic and redemption turned quickly to pride and power. She turned to leave. She did not wish to be among those self-righteous fools, those cowards unwilling to stand for their convictions. She left the village. Only a few days later, Isabel's body was found in the surrounding woods. She had frozen to death in the winter cold. Her body was taken to the church, and with no funeral or words from the minister, she was buried in a small wooden casket. That was the end of the village pariah, Isabel Heriot, or so the minister thought. 3 days after her unceremonious burial, on a dark and bitterly cold night, some of the villagers swore they had seen Isabel walking from the chapel in the direction of the minister's house. It was said she wore flowing, white grave clothes and had a pale yet wicked expression. That night, the minister was abruptly woken from his slumber as a stone shattered his bedroom window. The panicked minister jumped to his feet and narrowly avoided a second stone that came through the window with some force. He ran to the sill and looked down, but there was no one to be seen. By the next morning, rumours of the woman in white and the attack on the minister had already spread throughout the entire village. Some whispered in private that Isabel had returned to seek her vengeance for her hardship. Many of the villagers thought of the part they had played in the poor woman's death, and were now worried for their own safety. Over the next few days, more mysterious disturbances occurred. A young stable boy, while tending the horses, was grabbed by the heel and tripped. He said he could feel the ice-cold fingers upon his foot as a spectral hand took his feet from under him. Another day, the stable boy was looking for an old horse comb when from out of nowhere the very comb was thrown at him. But that was far from the strangest occurrence in the stable. The boy remarked that for the last few days, each morning when he entered the stable, the horses seemed tired and restless, and covered with sweat, as if they had been riding all night. One family reported that their bed had been filled with ash and cinders. 4 nights in a row this would happen, and on the last night they called the minister and told him to stop this devil before it could do any more. The minister was lost. He knew not what to do. The family blamed the minister for all that had befallen them and the village. After their confrontation with the minister, the family had no further issues. One of the women who had witnessed the ghostly apparition of Isabel that first night would see her again. It was on another cold and dark evening, as the young woman was returning home. She spotted the flowing white grave robe once again, but this time the spectre was in the minister's garden and appeared to be collecting stones. Cautiously the woman approached and whispered softly to the spirit, "Isabel, please tell me what you are doing here." The spectre stopped and turned slowly to face the woman. With a vacant expression, yet oddly piercing black eyes, Isabel said,
"I have stolen all the gold that the minister owns. It is now the property of the devil, for he is the only one who came to me in my hour of need and granted me my vengeance. I will first destroy the minister, mind, body and soul. Then it will be your turn, and the rest."
The evil spectre began to move closer to the woman. With a sudden pang of terror, the horrified woman ran with all haste back to her home. This was the last recorded appearance of the ghost of Isabel Heriot, although it is said by some that the spirit of the outcast woman still haunts the village of Peaston, and there she continues her revenge on the relatives of the villagers that treated her with such derision. Thank you for listening.